Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Pragya. I did my MBBS from JLNMCH Bhagalpur, Bihar, and I secured an All India rank of 862 in NEET PG 2023. So I'm just making my first YouTube video after a lot of thought, just to give you a brief idea of the most important things that I thought that any NEET PG or INICET aspirant should know. So let's just begin with one important point that I want to keep aside, and that is that if you're still in your second or your third year, please read your standard books. uh, People might have not read their standard books and would have secured much better ranks than me, but in my case reading those books helped. You will already have your basics clear, and you'll probably even already have, those things will be in your memory, so it will make your reading of your main notes much more easier and smoother. You'll consume less times, you'll memorize things better, and you already know most of the things. So that worked out really well for me. So having said that, let's begin. First, I would like to start with your main notes, how to go about it. So I used TAMS, which was actually a great decision, I think, because TAMS gives really concise notes, and that's exactly what you want. So my first point to you would be that you are preparing for your PG exams. You are not here to clear your concepts or to learn new extraordinary things at this time. All you have to target is a rank and a seat. So for doing that, you only need to memorize things that are important for this specific exam. And for that, you need concise notes, not huge, thick books. Okay. So even if you're reading some other vast source, I would suggest you to first solve your previous year questions. Like, suppose if you're starting with your surgery, see your surgery previous year questions. Don't do them at the end. Start with those previous year questions, see them, see what's important and what is not, and then on the basis of that you can filter out your notes, filter out all the unnecessary things. It's not a test about how much you know, it's a test about how much of the important things you know, the things that come repeatedly in your exams, right? So do your previous year questions. On the basis of that, get a brief idea of what is important, what comes repeatedly and what doesn't. So that is how you will develop a very concise and very short and very high yield set of notes. Okay, so that is it. Now the second thing that I would like to tell you is how to approach your GTs, your grand tests. So when you start your preparation, like in the initial phase, you can start giving your GT as soon as possible. You don't have to finish one round of revision or finish all your subjects. No, it's not about your marks or your performance at this point. You just have to give those GTs to get a feel of the exams, to get a feel of sitting for 3 hours, solving those questions simply on the basis of your MBBS knowledge. Score as much as any score is fine. I used to score 15 and 19% in my initial GT, so it's fine. Just give them, see how you're doing, get the feel, and that's it. But towards your last 5 to 6 months, start giving GTs every fortnight. Okay, and by this time I am expecting you to have done at least one revision of most of your subjects. So see where you're lacking, open your GT. Yes, for GT I think Marrow is probably the best source according to me. I used exclusively Marrow to give my GTs. It has amazing interface, it has great questions, and most importantly, most of the students give those exams, so you get a brief idea of where you stand among the crowd that you're competing with, right? So you give your GTs and see your bottom 4 to 5 subjects. On the basis of those subjects, you'll know that suppose anatomy used to be a very weak thing for me. So suppose you got the weakest in anatomy, you see those questions, see where you're lacking. Or if you know that you haven't studied the entire subject at all, study it. Study it in a fast pace, solve its MCQs, its question bank, see the previous year questions, and then sit for your next GT. So gradually you are going to improve. It is a process, improvement of your score in GTs, and it has to happen. It happens for everyone sooner or later. So you don't have to get all anxious about it, like trying to have a massive improvement from one GT to the next. It's fine, it will happen. And if it's not happening, that means that somewhere you are lacking. You see, figure out what are the subjects, see your bottom 5, focus on those subjects, and then give your next GT and see how it works. So that is how I approached my GTs. So my next point would be about the number of revisions you need. So in my case, I did approximately 3 revisions of my main notes, and for some minor subjects I did like 2 revisions. But for all the majors, medicine, surgery, pathology, obs and gynae, pedia, your pharmacology, I did almost 3 revisions. But for some, like your FMT, ENT, psychiatry, anesthesia, I did approximately 2 revisions from the main notes. So that totally depends on you, but at least 2 revisions should be your target. And other than that, you should constantly keep solving questions. And by questions, your first priority should always be your previous year questions, right? So with this, I'll start my next very important point, that is your previous year questions, which are my personal favorite. So I'll just bust a very important myth that I've heard from most of the people, that previous year questions are important in your INICET and not in your NEET PG. They are not repeated in your NEET PG. Now this is wrong. First of all, in this year's NEET PG, there were many repeats. And second thing, even if your previous year questions are not being repeated, you should focus on your previous year topics. Because most of the questions, no doubt, NEET asks you some new and tricky questions every year. But the bulk of your questions that you need for a good score is mostly repeated. That's why I'm asking you to always do your previous year questions before starting a subject. After doing your subject, you can do them again, do them once more towards the end. All I'm saying is you should have an absolutely, exhaustive idea of your previous year questions and the topics that they are asked from. So now I'll be moving on to another aspect. After you have done your main notes and you have given your GTs consistently, what is the most important thing that will ultimately help you reach that rank? Your final revision. Okay, so that process for me started around October. I started my final revision slightly before INICET, and the king for the final revision, I hope you all have already heard about it. This, your first aid. Along with that, I used DAMS DVT. So these two were my main important source, along with obviously previous year questions. So I will explain you how to use these sources properly to do your final revision. But before that, I would like to also mention that Zainab Vora ma'am has created a great revision course which also includes first aid. Now I did not attend it, but I have heard that it's amazing, so please go check it out. I think you might like it, but I'll just tell how I used first aid. So first of all, I did it cover to cover. You can filter out important things to do from it, which I'll also mention. But I did first aid from the first page to the last page, and towards my last 5 months, October, November, December, January, and February, I did not read my main notes. Now, here is the tricky part. You need to have faith in yourself that all that you have read from your main notes is somewhere here. You do not need to revise each and everything from your vast notes. And trust me, even after you have made your main notes super concise, it will still not be enough. You will still not be able to revise those notes effectively in your last 10 to 15 days. For that, you need a proper, well planned revision course. And that's why I'm asking you to read first aid. Now, I read it, everything, and in some places I annotated the first aid. So you might have seen videos of Dr. Aditya Gupta, to whom I'm really very thankful. He was actually the person who introduced first aid, like the first time I heard it from him. So you have seen videos on how to annotate it, mention the previous year topics, and add lines. But here is what I improvised. So Marrow has amazing interface. Suppose you have a question on rheumatic heart disease. So below that question, you will have all the important points. You will have your Jones criteria. You will have your prophylaxis schedule, like someone with only rheumatic fever, someone with carditis, someone with valve disease. For how long will you continue the prophylaxis? All these are the only questions they ask. So all this is written right below that question on rheumatic heart disease, right? So what you will do, suppose in first aid, rheumatic heart disease is given very shortly, 4 to 5 lines, and you want to add that point where prophylaxis is given. So what will you do? You don't have to write the whole thing. Thanks to Marrow, you just mention that MCQ ID or that Pearl ID, and the next time when you go and revise that topic, all you have to do is open that Pearl ID when it comes, revise from it, and you're done. That's the smartest annotation of first aid. Use your Marrow question bank and annotate the Pearl ID, annotate the MCQ ID. That's it. You have to write very minimal extra things. Now, here is another very important thing. Don't annotate bullshit. Don't annotate things from your GTs. Don't annotate things from your question bank. Only annotate things that have come in your previous year question. You do not want to make first aid as vast as your main notes, right? First aid should remain first aid, just a revision source. Now for DVT, I would say the interface is slightly old. That is a bit of disadvantage of DAMS, but I would ignore that interface simply because they are a beautiful revision source. DAMS people know exactly what is asked, and they'll give you notes exactly based on that. My huge respect, they are literally my mentors. So I followed DVT. I also read DVT twice because it came late. It came in end November or something. So I did 2 revisions from DVT, and few subjects are amazing in it, like your obs and gynae, your pathology image based questions, your physiology, and pharma. These are great. I found them great. ENT, all these subjects I loved in your DVT. So it's totally your choice. You see DVT, if you like it, well and good. I think it worked out for me. So I would totally suggest you to get DVT. So why did I tell you to take 4 to 5 months with these revision sources? That's because your revision source should itself be well revised. You can't revise something you are not completely thorough with. That's just, waste of time. That is the whole reason why most people attend DVT, most people know about first aid, but not everyone is able to utilize it to the best. It's because you haven't already memorized it, you are not thorough with it. So if you're not thorough with something, reading it in last 10 to 15 days is not going to be very useful for you. So I completed first aid around 4 times in my last 4 to 5 months, and DVT twice. And each time you read it, it just keeps getting easier. Things keep getting simpler. You start to find out new and new things. It's like NCRT of your NEET UG, right? In your first reading, you'll be like, oh my god, it's so easy, it's so useless. And that is where your questions come from. That is where the most important information lies, and that is what you need to do and revise in your last 4 to 5 months. Okay, so what I told you is, you use your first aid, use your DVT, or I also mentioned Zainab ma'am's notes. Go and see it. If you like it, use those notes. Take your last 4 months to memorize those notes properly. Annotate your previous year questions in it, revise them repeatedly, and then you will be left with your last 15 days. So finally, I'll tell you how to go about your last 15 days. So first of all, the very important thing that I would like to mention is, in this last fortnight, forget your GT marks. Forget how much you have studied, forget how much you are scoring, forget everything, because trust me, this is a real game changer for you. This might be that one last push which will help you do so much better and will create such drastic change. I can't even express it. Like before the last GT that I gave around 20 days before my INICET, I scored around 50 percentile or something, and my score was also very poor. But I ended up getting 1300 rank in INI November, which is not sufficient for INI, but it was totally unexpected for me, right? And that is only because I did that last 15 days revision very thoroughly. Okay, so forget everything, maintain a very positive attitude in this last 15 days. Don't give any GT in these last 15 days, because trust me, confidence in yourself will be very much needed on the exam day. You don't want to break your confidence by giving a fake exam. Okay, GTs are meant to be given early. Don't give them in the last 15 days, right? Only revise. Make a good schedule. I used to take 12 days. Okay, take 12 days. Put units of first aid. First aid has given its whole content system wise. So suppose you can take one day for CNS. So CNS is a slightly long topic. So on that day, I used to put a very small portion of DVT. Suppose I used to put psychiatry. Okay, then you can take nephro and respi are small topics. So on day 2, you can study both nephro and respi from your first aid. I used to also supplement them with my DVT. Suppose you read nephro and respi, so I used to do DVT, nephro and respi on the same days. They're very short, hardly 10 minutes you will take, because I had already filtered out what I will read from my DVT. Only the drug part or investigation part, very few things. Even my DVT I had filtered out to not read anything extra, right? So that is how you will make a 12-day schedule. Each unit of your first aid and important units of your DVT, and keep 2 hours at night for your previous year questions. So I also revised my previous year questions towards the end. Okay, so that's how your day will go. One topic or 2 topics from first aid, units, the whole system wise. Keep DVT topics in the remaining time, and 1 or 2 hours in your previous year questions. And trust me, it's doable. It's doable because you have already read your first aid and DVT before. It's not new for you, right? So you'll flip through very fast and you'll be able to finish it, because I did it, trust me. So now that you are done with these 12 intense days of revision, there are the last 3 days. Okay, so for these last 3 days, what I did was I made a list of the exact topics which have come in your previous year, right? I made a list of those topics, and I also mentioned the reference. Like, suppose there is a topic on obstructive versus restrictive lung diseases, so I know that it's given well and good in first aid, so I'll write first aid. Suppose there is a pearl on your STD kits, so I'll write STD kits and I'll write the pearl number. I'll just attach a page for your reference. Okay. So, using this list, in the last 3 days, I did another short revision of the high yield topics in exam, and it worked out pretty well because all your volatile topics, Jones criteria, uh, vitamin deficiencies, all those tests, your screening criteria for breast cancer, cervical cancer, uh, immunization schedule, BLS and ACLS, all those things. So some things are very volatile. No matter how many times you read it, you will end up forgetting them, right? So for those things, last 3 days, again you can make such kind of list and you can go through that. The important thing here is include only the most volatile topics in that list. Don't include generalized topics, okay? Because you won't have that much time. And the second thing is mention the exact place from where you want to read it. In that way, you'll be saving your time, right? So that is precisely how I did my preparation, and trust me, it is very much possible for you to do it too, right? I have never been like that absolute topper or someone who keeps studying all the time, but I still did it. I just had that belief and I did it. And please just believe in yourself. I think once you set your mind to it, once you decide that you want it and you work towards it consistently, there will be plateaus, there will be low phases. Some days you won't feel like studying, some days you won't have that energy. But I think ultimately, if you stay consistent, if you keep working slowly, gradually, I think it just happens for you. And then you'll feel great that in spite of all those challenges, in spite of all those, hurdles, you just did it, and you did it for yourself. So that is, I think, that according to me is a form of self love, right? So yeah, please do it. And if you have any other questions, feel free to drop those questions. I'll try my best to answer them. Thank you.